Thursday began with the icy click of the thermostat. The device, like a strict inspector, turned the heat on precisely at 5:45. Marianne Cole, having woken up a second before the alarm, didn't linger. She stretched out like a taut string and immediately sat on the edge of the bed. Graphite smoke tights, a pencil skirt, a snow-white blouse, a knot of silk scarf, the whole dressing ritual took her 8 neatly clocked minutes. While she curled her eyelashes, outside, in suburban St. Paul, the plump crust of snow began to flush pink. February still held the city in a cold grip, but promised sun. In the kitchen there was the smell of fresh Guatemala Huehuetenango coffee, the beans she ground herself, accenting the midnight chocolate shade with a hint of cardamom. The steaming drink poured into her favorite mug with turquoise crackle. Marianne could even mentally hear the splash of a perfect ledger line. Everything was that precise. The morning summary looked like this. Family assets. House on Cedar Grove Lane, market value $420,000 though mass retirement account. $610,000 in index funds. Evans student loans almost paid off, $18, $400 left. Liabilities, mortgage $76,000, car payment $8,000. Marianne scrolled the spreadsheet on her tablet and felt the familiar pride. The figures fit together like a smoothly tucked hospital corner. Yet a chilly quiver flickered in her chest, as if an unrecorded expense had crept between the lines, something immaterial, but tangibly eating the oxygen. Thomas appeared in the kitchen doorway in a flannel shirt, smelling of mint mouthwash. 61 years old, silver stubble, a slightly rounded belly, and soft wrinkles at the eyes made him look like a retired scholar who keeps old National Geographics in the garage. He hugged his wife briefly, a hand across her back, a habitual, almost weightless touch. Chicago lost to the Wild last night, he mumbled, pulling out orange juice. Then the city will wake up grumpy. Marianne smiled, stroking his shoulder with her fingertips and noting mentally, contact 3 seconds, then hell retreat into the paper. So it was. Thomas moved to his corner, the newspaper cracked open, and their morning dialogue dissolved in the rustling of news columns. 8:40. The house filled with the gentle creak of steps. Evan was coming down. He wore threadbare sweatpants and a stretched Mayo Clinic residency t-shirt. Hair tousled, face not yet shaped by a razor, the same teenage boy who once hid behind his mother's leg. But new weight lived in the slumped shoulders. 3 months in a surgical internship had thinned him, taught him to speak briefly, and left him fiddling too often with an N95 mask, a lingering habit. Mom, any coffee left? Fresh. Marianne already held the second mug, as though expecting the request. He smiled gratefully, and that smile clicked 2 old slide frames in Marianne's mind. First, a 6-year-old Evan with a knocked-out baby tooth, shaking with tears. Second, last night. Thomas was long asleep when Evan slipped into the living room, sat beside her on the couch, and nearly soundlessly burst, I blew the laparoscopy practice. My hands were shaking. His shoulder blades tensed like stone when she laid her palms on them, the old way, circular, strong thumb pressure along the trapezius, find the knot, melt it. Lavender from a slim vial smoked the air, and Evan gently lowered his head into her lap. Yesterday she felt her son's breath tracing hot circles through the thin wool of her skirt. Her heart beat indecently fast, yet her hands kept working, professional, maternal, safe. Wasn't it? How easily the body gives what it knows, and how hard for the soul not to claim the grateful sigh. Now, in the morning light, Marianne pointed him to the granola bowl. He sat, crossed one leg over the other, and a flash, his knee brushed her ankle. The touch was light and almost electric. Marianne flinched, hid the gesture, sipped coffee. No one noticed. The house breathed 7 o'clock lazy coziness. Heavy clocks clicked the half-hour, icy frost outside traced a web. From the outside their life looked flawless, financially sound family, strong marriage, wunderkind son. Only Marianne herself knew how deeply in the walls of this Victorian cottage barely audible microcracks pulsed. She left for the office at 9:15, checking in the rearview mirror. Scarf lies straight, lipstick matches exactly. But when she pulled away, her heart skipped a fraction. In the rear glass flashed Evan standing on the porch. He waved, and in his smile flickered a question he dared not ask. Marianne turned the corner, switched the radio to classic jazz and softly, scarcely audibly, said, "You only have to be attentive." Just attentive, yet the morning sun, glinting in the windshield, cut her thoughts like a laser. Who will check the balance when the unrecorded expense of feeling begins to grow? And while the bank parking lot welcomed her with even asphalt, somewhere deep in consciousness the first unaccounted variance was already forming, elusive as the breath of another's desire, barely noticeable, but real enough to shake the most precise ledger. Saturday woke with the smell of wet foliage. The night snow had melted, leaving a shiny crust on the porch, thin, fragile, like eggshell. At 6:30 Thomas was already gathering tackle, an old leather case, a box of flies, a thermos of syrupy cocoa. He kept glancing at his wife, as if checking whether she'd rescind blessing his early departure. "I'll be back for dinner," he murmured, as Marianne knotted his scarf. "Don't forget to photograph the catch," she replied, adding the automatic "watch your back." The door slammed. The house inhaled the cold air, as though it breathed freer, and silence spread through the rooms, stealthily filling every corner with new acoustics. 8:15. Marianne kicked off her heels and walked barefoot across the kitchen tile. A sunbeam crumbled moth, dust in the air, a distant dog barked through the windows. In this slot she usually drove to the bank, but today was a day off, a rare white page in a dense diary. She took from the cabinet a tall glass, not for wine or whiskey, but for special drinks, as Thomas joked. She filled it halfway with almond latte cooled overnight, and opened the laptop. Corporate mail winked with 8 unread messages. Marianne looked at the red notification circles and felt a strange emptiness under her ribs, as if those digits had no weight. On the sideboard lay the phone. She pressed the button. No messages. Seemingly normal, yet inside a tiny spark of disappointment flared, unacknowledged but tangible. Near noon the door opened without the habitual rattle of keys. "Mom?" Evan stepped into the hallway in black joggers and a grey UMN hoodie. Under eye bluish moons of fatigue. A faint smell of antiseptic mixed with the scent of wind. He had apparently walked from the bus stop. "I thought you'd be out," he said, justifying his confusion. Free today, Marianne smiled, feeling something tighten within, anticipation and guilt at once. "Kettle still hot." He collapsed on the couch, head tipped back, eyes half closed as though every movement cost effort. "Tough shift." "Night in the he grumbled. 2 appendectomies, 1 gunshot, and a heap of paperwork. I think I didn't even blink." Marianne sat nearby, noting the distance, 1 cushion segment. Evan unzipped the hoodie through the thin t-shirt. His delts stood out, result of morning workouts that burn stress. "Want a snack?" Later, he rubbed his neck. "Could I the thing?" The thing. The ritual. Her fingers seemed to remember the trajectory themselves, from the coffee table drawer, the tiny lavender vial. She slid his hoodie aside, bearing the line of shoulder blades, and let 1 drop fall. Oil shimmered on skin like light honey. First presses, gentle, kneading. Evan exhaled, shoulders sagged. "I thought you'd be at the bank," his voice turned almost drowsy. "Otherwise I wouldn't have asked." "I said, day off." Silence billowed, only their shared breath, and an occasional twig tap on the glass entered it. Marianne shifted a pillow with her knee so he sat straighter, and suddenly felt, her skirt had ridden higher than usual, exposing mid-thigh. Evan, as if sensing the change, opened his eyes. His gaze slid along the pale strip of skin, lingered a second. Not bold, yet not accidental. Marianne felt a torrid flash of shame and a strange, brazen pleasure, as though a secret compliment ran current through her nerves. She hastily covered the fabric, but the heat already climbed, breaking her breath. "Mom," his voice trembled with fragile metal. "You okay?" "Of course," she whispered. To hide the tremor, she bent to the sideboard. "I'll get you some water." She stood, knees soft, as after long sitting. In the kitchen she filled a glass and in the reflection of the cabinet door saw her own cheeks, rosier than usual. "It's normal. Just warmth. Lavender." Yet even after justifying herself she switched on the extractor fan, let the noise disperse stray thoughts. Returning, she handed the glass. Evan took a sip, set it down and said quietly, "Sometimes I feel like I'm suffocating there, in the resident lounge." "I know. But only here," he caught her gaze. "Can I breathe?" The words lay between them like a mountain. Marianne nodded and almost panicked, rose again. "I 1 minute." On the bar shelf stood a bottle of Oban 14. Thomas saved it for guests. Marianne unscrewed the cap, splashed amber into a heavy tumbler, almost 2/3, and took the first swallow. Liquid burned her throat, spread warmth across her chest. The second sip, more familiar. Buzz in her head muffled the swarm of thoughts. She returned, sat a bit farther than before and smiled with strained ease. "Tell me exactly what happened on the shift." Evan started describing the exhausting night round, but every word reached her through the film of whiskey, letters rattled, lost focus. And in her field of vision a frame persisted, his fingers barely touch her knee, he looks, not averting eyes. Conversation petered out. Evening light, slipping through the curtains, painted a golden stripe across the couch, falling squarely between them. Evan stretched a hand to adjust the plaid edge, and the back of his hand brushed the back of hers. Contact lasts a single heartbeat, yet it's enough. An electric charge pierces to the shoulders. Marianne drew in breath. "Mom," Evan said quietly, "I sometimes think, if everyone had support like mine." He didn't finish. His gaze lingered on her lips. Marianne smiled, grateful, maternal, and said aloud, "Support is knowing where to stop." He nodded, his smile wavered, mixing embarrassment and respect. The stripe of light between them darkened, the sun slipped behind the roof. At 9 p.m. Thomas sent a photo of 2 rainbow trout. Caption, "Fish soup for tomorrow's lunch." Marianne replied with a fish and a heart emoji. Evan had already gone upstairs, quietly wishing night. He didn't ask for a bedtime massage, didn't peek in for a minute. Marianne opened the living room window, an exhale of snowy air instantly cooled her heated head. She stood at the cold sill, pressing the whiskey to the glass. Let the amber turn icy, then it's easier to remember who she is. Her reflection emerged on the pane. 38, a flawless jawline, the signature posture of an executive, and eyes that hadn't looked at themselves, as a woman capable of flaring in a long time. Outside came the thud of a car door, neighbors back from a party. Marianne shut the window, checked the door lock, and, heading upstairs, involuntarily touched the hallway switch. Click. The sound startled her heart, the very click after which the door first creaked in the earlier story. She turned off the light and went to bed. She lay beside the cold half of the mattress, knowing Thomas would come late, and between them would be only the smell of fish and fatigue. But inside already lived another thing, unfinished, dangerous, like a hairline crack in glass. Speaking walls took the first whisper upon themselves. Now they kept in memory, support is knowing where to stop. Only the walls knew that the phrase was spoken not for the son, but for herself. Tuesday began routinely, document flow, video conference with regional branches, polite joke swapping by the coffee machine. But the moment Emma glimpsed a notification on her phone, "Ethan, could use a shoulder tonight," the office din went cottony. By 6 p.m. she was already driving home, gripping the wheel until her knuckles whitened. Michael lingered at the Veterans Club meeting, and the house seemed to crouch in twilight expectation when she turned the key. Ethan sat on the very edge of the couch, in that same white t-shirt. Beside him lay his internship portfolio folder, the document corners bristled like a flustered bird's feathers. "Did they chew you out?" Emma asked, setting her bag down. "First time they let me near a live operation, and he rubbed his face, I froze." The surgeon whispered, "You have to look fear in the mouth." But I looked at my hands and thought they'd betray me. Emma sat beside him, a palm's breadth of air remained between them, thick with the unsaid. Inside her arose the habitual mix of pity and strange warmth. He trusted her more than his mentors. "Back still like armor?" "Like plate," he grinned wearily. Emma fetched the same lavender essence. While her fingers kneaded Ethan's shoulder blades, thoughts ran faster than her movements. "Your presence is my flight from emptiness. And my touch is your flight from fear. But where's the boundary between help and temptation?" Ethan exhaled long, softly, "You're the only one I don't perform for." The phrase cut unexpectedly close. Emma's heart answered with a quick thud. She felt how his micromovements, a slight drift of shoulders, an involuntary turn of head toward her wrist, slowly erased that centimeter of air between their bodies. Suddenly in the hallway came a clatter, clack, the mail slot. The newspaper hit the mat, and the sound returned them to reality. Emma yanked her hands away as if scalded. "Let's go to the kitchen," she said too brightly. "I need a big glass of water." Panic swelled inside. Sensuality was sparking onto the dry tinder of their vulnerability. At the counter she poured herself cola over ice, not whiskey, yet it burned her throat anyway. Ethan stood in the doorway, shoulder against the jamb. Light from the window slid across his face, emphasizing slight stubble, and the shadow under his eyes. "Sorry," he began. "Sometimes I feel I take more from you than I should." Emma set the glass down, turned. "You don't need to apologize for needing support. But remember, I'm human too." Inner monologue, "Say it now, before it's too late, we stop here. But if I step back, hell face that fear alone." Emma took a deep breath. "We introduce traffic light words for clients at the bank." "What?" "Green, comfortable; yellow, on the edge; red, stop, need a pause." "Let's agree, if one of us says yellow, it's not refusal, it's a signal to slow down." Ethan nodded, a mix of gratitude and slight hurt flashing in his eyes. He understood. "Yellow," Emma said first, feeling the tension in her chest ease. "Let's find another way to help you tonight." "Will you tell me about your first work critique?" he asked hesitantly. She smiled. "How my collection of fitted blouses began." "Deal." They moved the folder to the table. Instead of touch there was word. Instead of lavender, the smell of coffee. Yet in the air lingered a thin, taut thread, an acknowledgement that both felt more than they should but were trying to keep it in hand, not squeeze until disaster. Midweek brought rare coolness. The city slowed under rain, the bank lobby windows fogged, and for the first time in a month the elevator speakers replaced jaunty fanfare with old jazz. Emma felt that watery veil washing away the residual electricity of the previous evening, on the outside only. Inside it still hummed, anxiety, guilt, a strange sense of power over what mustn't be touched. She decided, tonight I'll talk to Michael before words sprout roots of lies. By 7 Michael indeed returned earlier than usual, umbrella still dripping in the hallway, boots leaving dark marks. He looked animated. "Did you hear? The guys landed an 8-kilo catfish." Emma smiled, helped remove his wet jacket. A thought flickered. How far he is from everything churning under my skin. At dinner Michael relayed fishing club stories while Emma noted how he still set forks, poured sauce, as if nothing in the world had shifted. But it had. And she needed 2 tries to muster courage. "Mike, we have an important talk." He froze, placing his fork down carefully, like the last digit on a check. Something with Ethan. With him it's complicated. And with me too. Emma didn't utter forbidden words. She spoke about Ethan's depletion, how he sought support too close, how she feared erring between maternal care and emotional dependence. Michael was silent, not for lack of understanding. He listened the way he listened to subordinates when the bank creaked at the seams, to the end, without interruption. You think he? Michael searched for phrasing. I think he's lost. And I am too. Emma covered her tremor with a hand at the cup. But I won't let us all drown. She told him about traffic light words, about catching herself seeking in her son the emotions long gone from married life. Michael sighed and fidgeted with the tablecloth. On the lake, he said evenly, no one tells you what it's like to wake up and find your wife living a whole drama that won't let you near. We know how to mend nets and motors, but not this. Emma heard not reproach, but a plea, let me be useful somewhere. They drew up a list of steps. Emma signs up for personal therapy, not to excuse herself, but to cut the knot of guilt and attraction. A family session for 3, Emma, Michael, Ethan, neutral ground, licensed specialist. A clear time corridor. After 10 p.m. Ethan does not enter their bedroom or ask for a massage. Instead, walking or the breathing techniques taught at the clinic. The word yellow is now known to Michael too. If any of the 3 feels conversation or gesture nearing the dangerous line, the word is spoken aloud, and all stop. Michael stood, poured himself water, looked long at the rain-lit street. I can be a shoulder too, he said softly. Maybe I should have been long ago. Emma suddenly saw not a retiree gardener, but the lieutenant Michael once was, tired, yet still able to keep formation. And almost physically felt the support return, lost years ago. Later, with dishes cleared, Emma's phone lit with a new message, Ethan, Mom, I've been appointed assistant on the graduation operation. Banquet invite for 3. Will you come? She showed the screen to Michael. He nodded, well go. All of us. Going together is therapy too. Emma lay late. The rain had stopped, frogs croaked in the yard. She mentally repeated the plan like a mantra. Truth spoken, not shouted. Guilt named, not turned to stone. Boundary drawn in salt, it can be washed by tears, but not crossed without burning. Before sleep she recorded Ethan a voice message, Son, we're proud of your appointment. Yellow, remember? I'm using it now, I'm tired, so, till tomorrow. Love you. She sent it, switched off the screen and for the first time in weeks fell asleep beside her husband without secret trembling in her chest. Emma drove, holding a steady 35 miles per hour, too slow shows nerves, too fast they'll feel you want to dash through the evening. In the back seat Adrian rehearsed his thank you speech, clutching a cue card in front. Michael smoothed the seam of a new dark blue jacket, good wool, not fisherman's. Tonight we appear as a single coordinate system, Emma reminded herself. The word yellow in her pocket, therapist on speed dial, breathing, 4 in, 6 out. The atrium greeted them with ice cubes cracking in glasses, mobile shutters clicking, the aroma of lemon sorbet instead of traditional champagne. Emma, official smile, but shoulders squared, I am the sponsor of Calm. Michael, slightly behind, noting who approaches whom, where the non-alcoholic drinks are. Adrian, nominee for best graduation case, among fellow residents, yet his gaze finds his mother's. No one suspects the past month's boundary audit. That gives a strange doubleness to every polite compliment. Dean Hadley, a woman in an ash-grey pantsuit, greets Emma and Michael, you have raised a brilliant surgeon. The words fall like medals, but in the Dean's azure eyes Emma reads something else. We know about the challenges of residency. Heartbeat, 95 BPM. Yellow, asks the inner observer. No, decides Emma, It's only external stress, not internal. A colleague jokes that medics only kiss their scalpel. Laughter flashes. Emma catches Adrian's momentary discomfort, his fingers tighten on the cue card. She steps up, lays a hand on his shoulder, brief, public, safe son, you're perfectly prepared, even for humor. Shoulders drop, the card stops trembling. When his name is announced, Emma feels the hall become a tunnel, light, on her son, sound, seems filtered. Thanks to mentors. Special thanks to a family that shows boundaries aren't walls but bridges. Closing, surgery isn't about perfect incisions, but about closing wounds so they can breathe. Words land right under Emma's and Michael's ribs. They look at each other, nod, he learned. After the formal part, residents cluster for selfies. Enzo grabs Adrian's elbow, dude, it's your night, the toast heroine should be next to you. Laughs, nodding toward Emma. Half joke, half provocation. Emma sees her son's blush flare. The joke unintentional, yet keen. Time stretches like rubber. Emma takes half a step. Enzo, I won't photobomb, moms are spare pixels. She says it lightly but blinks at Adrian, yellow. He micronods, got it. Enzo laughs and moves to another colleague. Scene diffused, the hall unaware. Emma slips under the Wintergarten dome, where the fountain glows turquoise. Heart again 95. Hold it. A minute later Michael approaches, carrying 2 cups of soda. How's your traffic light? Yellow flashed. But no red. Proud of you. He offers his arm, she loops hers through, like when they were younger and things seemed simpler. Home meets them with the quiet chirp of the dryer. In the hallway Emma leans wearily against the wall. Adrian comes in last, pauses in the stairway shadow. His voice, a whisper, Mom, thanks for catching the signal. Emma steps, at a safe distance. One word answer suffices, always. Michael dims the bedroom lamp, leaving the door ajar, an invitation and a reminder at once. Emma lingers a second, looks up the stairs at her son. Warm and firm, good night, Dr. Aonquo. He smiles, first time all evening without a shadow, good night. Emma drinks 3 sips of water instead of whiskey, runs the 4-6 breathing, and before sleep honestly records in her journal, were not healed yet. But now the wound breathes, and that's already half the healing. A rainy evening in early December. The whole house smells of spiced mulled wine and fir resin. Emma put up the Christmas tree earlier than usual to test whether the family can face a warm trial, a holiday where every ornament recalls the past. A glass star, survivor of 3 moves and a neighbor's street fire, must crown the tree. Adrian takes it from his mother's hands. In this simple gesture fragility still pulses, one wrong move, and the delicate glass will shatter again, like their family once almost did. 1840. Doorbell rings. On the porch, a courier with a flat, heavy box addressed to the Aonquo family. No sender, no forewarning. Inside, a vintage Super 8 film labeled 1999. Haiti Clinic. Mother's handwriting. Yet she swears she never shot archival footage, let alone in Haiti. If it's a fake, it's still a sign, Emma whispers. We have to develop it. Adrian recalls the university library has a scanner for old film. An hour later they are in the media lab, rain-soaked, heartbeats over 100. The image flickers to life, a dim maternity ward in Port-au-Prince. Off-screen women's laughter, claps, the midwife's urgent cry. Then Addis' radiant young face, with a newborn in her arms. But the key, the man holding the camera turns it on himself, it's Michael. On film he kisses Addis' forehead and whispers, "This is our gift to the world. If we ever forget why we love, let this reel remind us." Emma freezes. In that year they were estranged, preparing for divorce no one speaks of now. So Michael secretly flew to Ada, reconciled. In the final frame mother, father, and tiny baby face the lens. 3 seconds of silence, and Michael says, "Well, name him Adrian. Because it means brave." Screen goes dark. The lab is empty save server hum. No one can speak. A memory none knew, proof that love had saved them once, long before today's crack. Michael sinks into a chair. I filmed it when I thought I'd lose everything. Wanted proof we're a family even if we split. Then I feared the real would hurt too much and hid it. Adrian rubs his eyes. Where'd the box come from today? Michael shakes his head. Emma, the first guess, but we opened the door without it squeak. Looks like the house decided to return what was forgotten. In that instant Michael's phone lights, unknown caller. He answers, face pales. His brother Uncle Leo has crashed 2 hours away. Hospital needs next of kin. Emma's old fear floods back. Once a night drive wrecked her friend's childhood. The traffic light inside her jumps instantly to red. But she grabs Michael's hand, not to hold him back, but not to let him drive alone. We're all going. Adrian at the wheel. The smell of fresh rain and old whiskey. Michael didn't drink floats. In the glove box, 2 salt lamp keychains Emma bought to replace the bottle. They switch them on, soft orange fills the car. Michael tells his son the details, how fear once made him hide the real, and how tonight he first chose not to run, but call his ex-wife first. Emma keeps 4-6 breathing, now adds a count of 7, a pause to hear the heart balance again. Adrian addresses his father differently for the first time. Dad, well, handle it. I can close wounds so they breathe now. Michael smiles through tears. I said on the real 20 years ago, if we ever forget why to love, thank you for reminding me. Leo suffers only a broken clavicle, surgeons save him. Family sits in the X-ray corridor. Emma sets the mini lamps on a plastic table. Soft orange glow visible through the glass. A duty nurse smiles, lovely talisman. Michael, gazing at the light, murmurs, "I'm okay if we don't restore the marriage. I'm not okay if the liar in me stays alive. I want a lamp." Friday check. We say what's shameful before it gets scary. Emma nods. She doesn't promise yes or no. She says, Friday will be. And any other day, as needed. Adrian logs in his phone, lamp Friday, 7 p.m. 4 a.m. They return home exhausted but whole. The front door creaks, but entirely different. Michael used to oil hinges so as not to wake the house. Tonight the creak sounds like a quiet chord. Emma smiles, here. It finally sings, not frightens. Why music for a creak? Because silence no longer masks secrets, one can discern notes in it, thus choose what melody to play. A week later Emma receives notice. The reel was sent by an archivist from Port-au-Prince, who found an address on the last frame where Michael holds a sign, if we disappear from each other, find us at this address in Georgia. He mailed it 5 years ago. But the package wandered through postal losses and customs delays, arriving the very evening the family needed proof love had already won. Sacramental conclusion. Sometimes the past prints itself precisely on the day the heart's muscles are ready to lift the box without shattering. Emma lights a small salt lamp on the bedside table. Watches orange shadows dance across the ceiling, just like the night the crack began. She opens her phone and writes a daughterly post for her channel. The door's creak is no longer a signal of dread. It's merely wood singing it needs oil. And we are people who heard the music in time. She taps publish without a tremor. And somewhere in the house, behind a closed yet now truthful door, a doctor son falls asleep for the first time without exam fear, and a father without a bottle.